Hello students, in this video I have a CBSE class 12 chapter The Enemy, chapter 4, authored by Pearl S. Buck. The full name of the author is Pearl Sidney Stricker Buck. She was an American writer and novelist, story writer and novelist. She was born in 1892 on 26 June. She spent most of her life in China. That's why she has a Chinese name also, Sai Zhengzhu. She won a Nobel Prize for Literature in the year 1938 and she died in 1973. Now let's discuss about the theme of this chapter. The theme of this chapter is that sometimes we got stuck in a very difficult situation where we could not decide that what we should do. Similarly, the chief protagonist of this chapter, Dr. Sadao, he's the chief, you can say, hero of this chapter. Dr. Sadao got stuck, he's a doctor actually, Japanese doctor, and he got stuck in a situation where he finds at his doorstep a Japanese, an American soldier, and it is the incident of this story deals with the year 1941 while Second World War was going on. And you know that in Second World War, Japan and America were big rivalries, they were big enemies of each other. And while Dr. Sadao found an American soldier at his doorstep, an escaped American soldier, he has escaped from the Japanese prison. Dr. Sadao was in big confusion that what he should do. Either he should treat him or he should hand him over to the army or police as a patriot, or as a doctor he should do his duty to treat him first. Let's see that what happens. So this is a theme that what we should do in our when we got in a difficult situation where we are not able to decide that what is good for us to do. But as a conclusion we can say that we should do in such type of difficult situation where we are not able to decide that what we should do. We must listen the voice of our conscience, which is our inner voice, because our inner voice always guides us, it never misleads us. Now let's start the chapter. It is a time of the World War. So as I told that it is the World War time, Second World War. An American prisoner of war is vast ashore. An American prisoner of war actually he perhaps escaped from the prison of Japan, and he jumped perhaps into the sea, and he was hit by the waves, or he was flew by the waves, and he came at the side of at the sea beach in a dying state, in almost in a dying position, and is found at the doorstep of a Japanese doctor. And he was found at the doorstep of a Japanese doctor. Doorstep is very close, means just you can say that just at the door of a Japanese doctor. Should he save him as a doctor? Now what should doctor do? Should the doctor save this Japanese this American prisoner because he was a doctor and he should treat his patient? He should never consider that his patient is his enemy or friend. He should treat him. So what should he do? And or another duty he has demanding at that time, that he should hand over this injured American prisoner to Japanese army as a patriot. Dr. Sadao, he's a doctor. Dr. Sadao's Sadao Hockey's house was built on a spot of the Japanese coast. Dr. Sadao's house, Hockey's house was situated on a spot, on a place which was a Japanese coastal area, with a seashore area, where as a little boy, where as a small boy he had often played, where he has spent his childhood there. The low square stone house, the low shaped house, not very high shaped, low shaped house, and the house was built with square shaped stone on a rock well above a narrow beach. It was situated on a good height of at a narrow beach that was outlined with bent pines, and his house was surrounded from every side with bent pines, big bent pine trees. As a boy, Sadao had climbed the pines, and while Sadao was a child, he climbed the pines, supporting himself on his bare feet, and he supported himself on the while he climbed on the pine trees with his bare. He means he climbed barefooted on those trees in his child age, as he had seen men do in the South Seas. Why Sadao did so? Because Sadao had seen men doing same process in the South Seas. He has seen that men in South Seas, means southern part of Japan, coast sea area, where I had seen that many people, when they climb for coconuts, they climb for coconuts on coconut trees. They used to climb barefooted. His father had taken him to the islands. His father had often taken him to the islands, that is South Seas Island of those seas, and never had failed to see him, and he all the time told him, to the little brave boy, to his son Sadao at his side, means at his, because as it was his responsibility also, it is a responsibility of our parents to always give us moral. So Sadao's father also gave him moral. Those islands yonder, and he told that, Sadao, son, those islands, indicating towards islands, those islands yonder, yonder means there, they are the stepping stones to the future of Japan, to future for Japan. They are the stepping stones, means they are the deciding, very important. Stepping stone means they are a mark of success to the future for Japan. Means for Japan, those islands are very important. Nowadays, it is not very important. Means towards those towards islands which he Sadao's father indicated and told. In those days, those islands were not very important, but he told that those islands are very important, are going to be very important for Japan in future. Where shall we stay from them? And while his father told Sadao as a child and childish curiosity, he asked his father that where from we will stay from. Means, if suppose father that if we are going to reach those islands, where from we will go there? Means whatever progress we will do, who knows? His father had answered. Students, don't be confused that his father is not answering that where shall they will go from there. He says who knows, means the future is not known to anyone, but those islands are very important, and those islands may be important in any manner for someone. That's why he says who knows. His father had answered, who can't limit our future, and no one can limit our future. Actually, it is a very important statement. No one can limit our future, only we can limit our future. If we don't accept our defeat, success is ours. It depends on what we make it. That is that I wanted. It depends on what we make it. Means it depends that how we use our how we utilize our resources. Whatever the resources we have, these islands are kind of resource for Japan. In whatever the way Japanese will use that island, that will make them progressive in that direction. Similarly, in whatever way we use our resources and capabilities and mental power, similarly our future will be. Sadao had taken this into his mind as he did everything his father said. Sadao kept these very important words, who can limit, as his father spoke about those islands. He kept these words into his mind and did everything his father said, and did everything. He was a very obedient son. He did everything as his father commanded. His father, who never joked or played with him, but who spent infinite pains upon him, who was his only son. His father had never joked or played. Means his father was never light with his son. You can't say that he was very strict actually, but he was a very serious father. Who wanted that his son must be very successful person in his life, and that's why. But who spent who means Sadao's father spent infinite pains. He faced infinite pains upon him to teach Sadao, who was his only son. Means to make the future of Sadao. Sadao's father himself bear a lot of pain. As every parent bear, our parents also bear a lot of pain for us, but they provide us everything. Similarly, the Sadao's father is also doing. Sadao knew that his education was his father's chief concern, and Sadao was also very obedient son. He knew that his father's chief concern, chief important thing is the important thing for Sadao's father in his life was his education. For this reason, he had been sent at 22 to America, and for that reason, for better education, Sadao was sent by his father to America at the age of 22 to learn all that he could learn it of his surgery and medicine. And for what purpose Sadao went to America in the age of 22? He went to America to learn surgery and medicine. Means he wanted to be a doctor there, surgeon and a medicine. He had come back at 30, and while he returned from America after completion of his study, he was 30 years of age. So he returned after 8 years. And before his father died, he had seen Sadao become famous not only as a surgeon. And before Dr. Sadao's father died, means before the death of Dr. Sadao's father, his father has seen his son not only being famous as a surgeon but as a scientist. That he also saw that Sadao's father saw that his son not only become a successful doctor, a famous doctor, but he become a successful scientist also. Because he was perfecting a discovery. Why he was a scientist? Because he was perfecting, means he was just about to accomplish a discovery which would render wounds entirely clean. Which will render means leave wounds entirely clean. Suppose that we receive some wound mark, some cut mark. The wound heals as the time progresses, but the wound leaves its wounds mark. Sada was working that a wound must be operated and there should not be any wound mark in the future. Means the wound mark will completely disappear. On that kind of medicine, Dr. Sada was working. He had not been sent abroad with the troops, and that's why he had not been, because it was a war situation, and many good doctors were sent by the troops, means army soldiers, to the border area where the war was going on. But Sada was not sent there because of this discovery. Also, he knew there was some slight danger that the old general might need an operation for a condition for which he was now being treated medically. Dr. Sada was not sent with the troops to the border. Reason 1, that he was discovering a medicine. Reason 2, that there was some slight danger, that was a very small risk, there was a very less risk that the old retired army general, this army general is a Japanese army general who served Japan in all through his life, and now he has become old and retired, but government is still taking care of him. Might need an operation for a condition, and this general was might need an operation anytime, for which he was now being treated medically. Now means this general's health condition was not good, and right now he was being given medical treatment, means he was being given medicine, but maybe it was a possibility that he needs to be operation, and Dr. Sada was a very good surgeon, and for this possibility, and for this possibility means this operation possibility, Sada was being kept in Japan. Sada was not allowed to go to with troops to the border. He was kept in Japan. Clouds were rising from the ocean now. Now it is a day. While clouds were rising from the ocean now, the unexpected warmth of the past few days had at night drawn heavy fog from the cold waves. An unexpected warmth means for past few days the days were very hot, but all of a sudden at this night when the incident took place, a very important incident took place, because of that story takes place also. So it was a very warm for a few days, but all of a sudden this night it drawn heavy fog, huge fog came out, means all of a sudden the wind become cold and fog appeared. Sada vast mist hide outlined a little island near. Sada is watching mist, means fog, hide outlines, that is hiding outlines an island near the shore. There was an island near the shore because Sada's house was situated just at the seashore, and Sada could see an island there, and that island was outlined, means from around the island he could see the fog, means fog made actually a kind of another island that is near the shore, and then come creeping up the beach. And now the fog is first it was appeared to the near the island, and now the fog is approaching towards Sada's house, come creeping up the beach below. Now the fog came to the beach below. Sada's house is situated at bit height, and at the bottom of the house there was a beach, and the fog now reached to the beach, wreathing around the pines, and now the fog started covering the pine trees of Dr. Sada's house, which was situated by Dr. Sada's house. In a few minutes fog would wrap about the house too, means Sada now guessed that in a few minutes the fog will cover his house also. Then he would go into the room where Hana, and then he will return to his room where Hana, his wife, would be waiting for him with the two children, and he had two children. But at this moment the door opened, and she looked out, and his wife Hana looked out. A dark blue woolen haori. She was wearing a very dark blue woolen haori. Haori is a kind of Japanese loose garment, which is wear over. It is over garment actually, over a kimono. Kimono is also a kind of Japanese cloth. She came to him affectionately. Hana came to Dr. Sada affectionately, means lovingly, and put her arms around his, and she embraces her actually. And he stood. She hugged her, and he stood, smiled, and said nothing. Dr. Sada was bending at the time and looking towards the fog. Now, while his wife Hana hugged him, he stood, smiled, and said nothing. He had met Hana in America. Now he's telling the story that where he met Hana, his wife. He said that he has met Hana in America, but he had waited to fall in love with her. But he did not fall in love with directly to Hana. He waited for that. Why waited? Until he was sure she was Japanese, because he was not in mood to fall in love with any American lady, because if he would fall in American lady's love, his father will never allow to marry. That's why he ensured that this girl is a Japanese girl, and not Japanese, so at least she is not an American, because America and Japan were big enemies actually. So he ensured that she is Japanese, and then he fell into love with her. His father would never have received her unless she had been pure in her race, and that's why I told you. His father would have never received her. Means Hana was received by Sadao's father gleefully, happily, because she had been pure in her race. She was pure from the race of means Japanese. She was a Japanese. She was from Japanese race, Japanese community, and that's why her father, Dr. Sadao's father, accepted her gleefully. Otherwise, if she would have been any other from any other nationality, his father would have some problem, but he would have received that girl also. But if she would have been American, it was very difficult for him to receive. He wondered often whom he would have married if he had not met Hana. Now, Dr. Sadao wondered all the time, so thought all the time, that if he had not married Hana, then whom he had married. Actually, he thinks that Hana is so suitable for him, and it's a very perfect match. And by what luck he had found her in the most casual way. And he's reminding that moment while in a very casual way he met Hana. By chance, literally, you can say that it was only by chance, by luck actually. At an American professor's house, he met Hana at an American professor's house. The professor and his wife had been kind people, anxious to do something for their few foreign students. Actually, remembers that the professor, while he was studying in America, American professor, the professor and his wife had been kind people. They were very kind people and anxious all the time. They were thoughtful. They thought to do something for their few foreign students. They had only few foreign students in America, and this both professor and professor's wife were very kind enough, and they always wanted to take care of them, the foreign students. And the students, though bored, the students actually bored. Why bored? You will get the reason. Actually, had accepted this kindness. Accepted they didn't want to accept this kindness, but they accepted it. Sadao had often told Hana how nearly he had not gone to Professor Harley's house that day. The professor, about him he is talking. Actually, the name of that professor is Professor Harley. He said while he got married with Hana, he used to tell her that Hana, how nearly I was not in mood to go on that day to the Professor Harley's house. Means that's why he says that it was by luck. Means Dr. Sadao was not in mood to go to Professor Harley's house on that night for study. That's why he said that he met Hana with by luck. But later on, the rooms were so small, because the rooms were so small sized, the food so bad. Means he was residing also in Professor Harley's house. The rooms were very small size, the food so bad, the professor's wife so valuable. The professor was a very talkative, but he had gone and there he had found Hana. But in spite of all these things, in spite of unwilling, he was not willing to go to the professor's house on that day. He was perhaps he would have been thinking to stay in hotel or somewhere else, but he went there on that day and he found Hana. So that's why it was just by luck. A new student. Then he saw on that day that a new student came into a professor's house and had felt he would love her if it were at all possible. And then Dr. Sadao decided that he will fall in love with this girl if it is possible. If possible means if she is Japanese. Now he felt her hand on his arm and was aware of the pleasure it gave him. Now Dr. Sadao, why remembered these all the thoughts that how he met Hana, because she came and she hugged him. Now he is feeling her hand around his arm, and he was well aware that how nice her touch was making him feel. Even though they had been married years enough to have two children, means even though that they had married years enough and they had two children also, still the love between them was still have same intensity. For they had not married heedlessly in America, because they had not married heedlessly in America. Heedlessly means without caring anyone. It is a heedless marriage that if two persons fell in love, they don't care about the family members, and then they got married. But it did not happen here in the case of Dr. Sadao and Hana. They both returned to America, returned to Japan from America, and thereafter they talked to their parents, they talked their family members, and then they got married in a traditional way. They had finished their work at his school. The same is going to describe here, that they had finished their work at his school, means their study was completed. Both were for study purpose, Hana and Sada. and had come home to Japan. They returned their home country, Japan. And when his father had seen her, the marriage had been arranged in the old Japanese way. And when Dr. Sadao's father see Hana, he agreed, and in an old Japanese way, traditional Japanese fashion, the marriage was arranged. Although Sadao and Hana had talked everything over beforehand, although Dr. Sadao and Hana both had discussed that how they will plan their marriage beforehand, means in advance. They were perfectly happy. They were very happy. She laid her cheek against his arm. Now she kept her cheek against the arm of Dr. Sadao. It was at this moment, now at this very moment, that both of them saw something black out of the mist. They saw that some black type of figure, means unclear figure, unclear structure, was coming out of the mist fog. Now something they saw that coming out of the sea. It was a man. They looked carefully that what is that black shadow is coming towards them. They saw, oh, it was a man. He was flung up out of the ocean, and they felt, oh, he was flung out, means he was thrown by the big waves out of the ocean, flung, and absolutely he was thrown. It seemed, because to see him, it was quite obvious to both husband and wife, Dr. Sada and Hana, that he was thrown out of the water, and he has no power left in his body. To his feet by a breaker, and he was walking on his feet actually, but on a breaker means he was not walking continuously. He was walking with a break, means he was ponting. He was taking few steps, ponting, breathing fast, and then again he was walking. He staggered a few steps. He came out of the water. Staggered means walk improperly, means lamed, walk lamingly, few steps. His body outlined against the mist. His body was outlined, means his body was being surrounded by the mist. His arms above his head, he has kept his arms above his head. That means he was injured badly. Then the curled mist, then the mist which was curling and surrounding him completely hit him again. And this man was hit by the mist, fog. Who is that? Hana cried. Hana asked, who is that man? She dropped Sadao's arms, and in surprise she dropped Sadao's arms. She was holding his arm, and they both leaned over the railing of the veranda. They both leaned, means they leaned and they tried to look more carefully that who is there over the railing of veranda. Now they saw him again. Again he was in sight. He was visible. The man was on his hands. Now this time the man was not walking on his feet actually. He was walking on his hands and knees. He was crawling actually. Means he fell on the ground, and with the help of his hands and knees he was crawling. Then like a child. Then they saw him fall on his face and lie there. And then they saw that a few steps he walked in that fashion with his arms and knees. But after some distance he fall prostrate on the ground, face towards ground. Okay, and thereafter he could not walk. A fisherman perhaps, Sadao said. Sadao said, oh, perhaps he may be a fisherman, washed from his boat, and he would have been thrown, was means thrown out of his boat because of big waves. He ran quickly down the steps, and behind him Hana came. And Dr. Sadao ran quickly towards that man to help him, and his wife also followed him. Her wide sleeves flying, the wide means very loose sleeves of Hana's kimono was flying. A mile or two away on the either side. Now Dr. Sadao is thinking that what is the geographical condition of that place where he found that man and where Dr. Sadao's house was situated. A mile or two away on the either side, means on both sides, a mile or two, means 1 mile or 2 mile maybe, either side, both sides, there were fishing villages. They were fishing, means only fishermen used to live. But here was only the bare and lonely coast. But where Dr. Sadao's house was situated, it is only bare and lonely coast, dangerous with rocks. And this sea coastal area was very, very dangerous with rocks. The surf beyond the beach was spiked, and the surf means, you can say, the water waves beyond the beach, means just close to the beach of that the waves was spiked with rocks, means that water was full of rocks, and all the rocks, most of the rocks has spikes, means very dangerous shapes which could pierce anything. Somehow the man had managed to come through them, and somehow in that such dangerous condition, somehow this man has managed to come out of this water. That's a very good thing. He must be badly torn. Dr. Sadao thought that he must have been badly torn, means he must have been badly injured. They saw when they came towards him. They both saw that when they came towards close to that man, that indeed it was so, and actually they were quite true, means he was badly injured. The sand on one side of him had already a stain red soaking through, and the sand on the one side of this man is already a stain of red soaking. Red soaking means red blood, means blood was coming out of his body, and the sand of one side of his body was soaked a lot of blood, and that was suggesting that he had a big wound. He is wounded, Sadao exclaimed. Sadao surprisingly said that he is wounded. He made haste to the man. He went very fast to that man. He started helping him, who lay motionless. He was laying motionless, means having no, saying no senses, no motion, no any kind of activity. His face in the sand. His face sunk to the sand. An old cap is stuck to his head. An old cap he was wearing over his head, soaked with sea water, and the cap was soaked a lot of seawater. He was in wet racks of garments. He was wearing racks of garments. His garments were ragged, which were wet of water. Sadao stopped there. Hana at his side. Hana is stopped at his side and turned the man's head. Now they turned the man's head. They saw the face. And while they both observed the face, dear students, be very careful. From here on, the story is taking a turn. A white man? Hana whispered. While Dr. Sadao turned the face of this man, he said, a white man? Oh, miss, he's an American. Hana whispered. Hana spoke slowly. Yes, it was a white man, and it is quite true that it was a white man. The weight cap fell away from there was his chest yellow hair. The weight cap fell upon his head while he was turned by Dr. Sadao, and his yellow color hair was visible, long as though for many weeks it had not been cut, and his hair was long as it seemed that it was not being properly cropped. And upon his young and tortured face, and upon his very young means he was looking very young-aged, very less aged. On his young age, young face, very, you can say very humble face, there were the mark of tortures and rough yellow beard, and very rough, not properly shaped beard, yellow colored beard. He was unconscious and knew nothing. He was unconscious, knew nothing that what was happening with him, and who were the people standing around him that they did for him, and and who were helping him. Now Sadao remembered the wound. Of this man, and with his expert fingers. Why the expert fingers? Because Sadao is an expert surgeon. He began to search for it. He started searching that where from the blood came out and soaked the sand. Blood flowed freshly at his touch, and while it touched, he started investigating his whole body, and his fingers reached to the portion of the body where he received an injury. As he touched, the fresh blood started coming out of that on the right side of his lower back, and it was there. Right side on his lower back means towards the right side. Lower back means almost you can say near the kidney area. Sadao saw that a gun wound had been reopened. Sadao saw that he was hit by bullet gun, and that's why he has received a wound there that reopened. That was blocked anyhow, but that while Dr. Sadao touched, is reopened, and fresh blood started coming out of that. The flesh was blackened. The flesh of that area, of that injured area, became black color with gunpowder, because of gunpowder. Sometimes, not many days, but Dr. Sadao thought sometimes, but not many days ago, means recently, in 2-3 days, the man had been shot. This man had been shot by a bullet and had not been tended, and he had not been tended means he had not been treated. It was bad chance that the rock had struck the wound, and it is very bad luck for this man that the wound also is stuck to that. The rock also is stuck to the wound, and that's why the wound became bullet wound, already very dangerous. Now he received the several strike against that wound by the rocks, became more dangerous. Oh, how is he? He is bleeding. Hana whispered again in a solemn voice. Hana spoke in a solemn, is very peaceful, very quiet voice, in a very slow tone. She spoke. Oh, how he is bleeding means how much blood is coming out of his body. The mist screened them now completely. Now the mist fog screen means completely covered them. And at this time of day, no one came by. And at this time of day, no one will come. The fisherman had gone home. And even the chance beachcombers, and even a chance of beachcomber means naval officers, naval soldiers, beachcombers who protect beach areas, would have considered the day at an end. They would have also considered that the now day has been an end, means it is evening time, so they will also not come. What shall we do with this man? Sadao muttered. Sadao spoke slowly. What shall we do with this man? But his trained hands seemed of their own will to be doing what they could do, to stanch the fearful bleeding. Dr. Sadao is muttering that what should we do, but his hands are doing automatically, as his hands are not commanding his words. So that is actually the problem of a good man. A good man always thinks good about others. Though Dr. Sadao is not willing to treat that man, but still he doesn't know actually the reality that who is he, but he is a white man, it is sufficient for him. He says that what should we do, but he's not waiting, his hands are not waiting that he should do what should do. His hands are automatically actually checking the wounds, and he is doing the arrangement to stance, means to stop the fearful bleeding, the blood which was coming out. And if the blood will continue coming out of his body in such a way, this man will die soon. So Dr. Sadao is talking to himself that what he should do, but in the meantime he should doing arrangements also to stop the blood. He packed the wound with the sea moss. Dr. Sadao found nothing else there, so he packed the wound with sea moss. Sea moss means sea grass. That is stood the beach. That is stood means that was scattered all near the beach area by the fisherman. He took some grass from there and he packed that wound. The man moaned while the wound was packed. The man moaned. He gave a pain signal with pain in the stupor. Stupor means unconsciousness, but he did not awaken. But he could not come into conscious. The best thing that he would we could do would be to put him back in the sea. Now Dr. Sadao said, answering to himself, he questioned to himself that what should we do. Now he's answering to himself also to the same question. He said, the best thing that we could do with this man is to put this man again into the sea, because he was an enemy. Now that the bleeding was stopped for the moment, and the bleeding which was being continuous from that injured spot was stopped for a moment, he stood up. Dr. Sadao stood up and dusted the sand from his hands, and he has some sands over his hands, so he dusted means he cleaned his hands. Yes, undoubtedly, that would be the best. Hannah said steadily. Hannah also said steadily, means with confidence, that yes, it is the best way that we should put him again into the water. But she continued to stare down at the motionless man. But Hannah, both husband and wife, are very kind-hearted. So, though she says that it is the best option to keep this man back into the sea, but she is looking towards the motionless face of this man. If we sheltered a white man in our house, we should be arrested, and if we turned him over a prisoner, he would be certainly die. Sadao said that if we sheltered a white man in our house, that if we are giving shelter to this man, means if we are taking this white man in our house, definitely we will be arrested, because it is war time is going on, and it was a duration of Second World War. Students, you must be aware about that. And in Second World War, Japan and America were big rivalries, big enemies. So in that condition, if they will keep a white man into their house, definitely they will be arrested. In anti-national activities, they will be treated as traitors. And if we turn him over as a prisoner, the first option that they should keep him into their house, it was dangerous for them, it was risky for them. Second option, that if they are going to turn this man over to the army of Japanese army as a prisoner, he would certainly die. They will kill him definitely, Sadao said. But Sadao was not in mood to kill him. The kindest thing would be to put him back into the sea, Hannah said. Hannah said to Dr. Sadao, to her husband, that the best possible solution of this problem is to put this man again into the sea. But neither of them moved. But no one of them. Now they are talking that they should put this man back into the sea, and this man is unconscious, so they should pick this man and throw into the water. But neither of them, neither Dr. Sadao nor Hannah, are moving to do so. They were staring with a curious repulsion upon the inert figure, with a very curious repulsion, hatred. Means in their eyes there is a kind of strange kind of hatred. That hatred can't be explained as hatred. They were hating because he was an American, he was a white man, but they were still thinking that he was a human being, and Dr. Sadao is a doctor, and it is the duty of a doctor to treat the patient. So for the inert means inactive figure, means that figure, the person who was lying motionless, inert, and showing no actions, they both are looking, gazing to that man. What is he? Hannah whispered. Now Hannah is asking, what is he? Means who is he? Let's check that who is he. He is a white man, so he may be a Britisher also. Who is he? There is something about him that looks American, Sadao said. Sadao said, there is something about this man, his structure says that he is an American actually. He took up the battered cap. Now Dr. Sadao took off the cap of that person who was wearing. Battered means the torn cap. Cap was also torn. Yes, they are almost gone. Actually, now he tried to get some guess from the cab that it will give some clue that where from this man is. Yes, almost in a very faint lettering, means a very faint letter. Something was written actually. A sailor. There was written a sailor, means a boatman. He said from an American warship, and it was written from American warship. It means that he was an naval officer of American naval officer, navy officer. He spelled it out. He says U.S. Navy. It was written U.S. Navy on the cap. The man was a prisoner of war, and then Dr. Sadao surprised him. The man was a prisoner of war. It means he's a prisoner of war. He has escaped, and perhaps he has escaped from the prison. Hana cried softly. Hana said softly, and that is why he is wanted. And that is why he is wanted. Means while he would have been escaped from the prison, the Japanese soldiers would have chased him, and they would have fired him bullet, and that bullet hit him to the right side of the back. In the back, Sadao agreed. In the back means the right side of the back where the wound was there. Means in the back he was hit by the bullet because he escaped as a prisoner. They hesitated. Now the both hesitated, looking at each other. They both are looking. Dr. Sadao and Hana are looking at each other. Then Hana said with resolution. Then Hana said with a decisive mood, means in a very with a firm mind. Come, are we able to put him back into the sea? She says to her husband, that come Sadao, are we able to let's pick him and let's check that are we able to put him back into the sea? If I am able, are you? Sadao asks. Sadao asks her, yes, I am able, but are you? Means will you be able to pick him? I will pick my side, but if you will pick. No, Hana said. Hana said, no, I will not be able to pick him. But if you can do it alone. Now Hana said, but if you can do it alone, means alone drag him to the water. Sadao hesitated again. Sadao hesitated. No, he said, no, alone it is not possible. The strange thing is, he said, it is very strange thing. Dr. Sadao said, that if the man were whole means if this man were not injured, healthy, complete, he was not whole at this time, he was not complete at this time. Why? Because he was injured, he was half. I could turn him over to the police without difficulty. Means if this man were whole, if this man were healthy, in healthy condition, he would have not a patient, I would have definitely turned him to the police without any difficulty. I care nothing for him. I don't care anything for him because he's an American. He is my enemy. All Americans are my enemy, Dr. Sadao says, and he is only a common fellow, and he is just a common fellow of America. You see how foolish is his face is. You know that how foolish is, how innocent his face is. But since he's wounded, but because he's wounded, if he would have been a whole man, I would have turned him to the police without any difficulty. But because he's wounded, you also cannot throw him back to the sea. Hana said, but yes, that's true. You also cannot throw him back to the sea. Then there is only one thing to do. We must carry him into the house. Then Hana said that okay, only one thing we could do, and that is to carry him to the house. But the servants, Sadao inquired. Now Sadao said that okay, if we will carry him to the house, we can think that he is an injured man, and we should treat him. We should not leave him here. We should not throw it into the water again. He will die. But what will happen to the servants? Servants are uneducated, and what they will think? Sadao inquired. We must simply tell them that we intend to give him to the police. Hana said that we will simply tell our servants that we intend, means it is our intention to give him to the police. Means we want, if servants will make inquiry to us, we will say that we want to hand this man to the police, as indeed we must, and definitely we are going to do that. Sadao, Hana said, Sadao, we are going to do that. Means we will hand him over to the police. We must think of children and have your position. We must think for children also. Means if you be caught as a prisoner, as a charge of traitor, anti-national elements, then what will happen of our children, and what will happen of your position? You have a very, very good position. You are a very famous surgeon of Japan. So think, it would endanger all of us if we did not give this man over a prisoner of war. It will be dangerous for all of us, for the life of all of us, if we are not going to give this man as a prisoner of war. Certainly, Sadao agreed. Yes, quite sure. If we are not going to hand him over to the police after treatment, Dr. Sadao thought that after treatment I will hand him over to the police. I would not think of doing anything else. I am not having anything in my mind. Doing anything else means we will take him to the home. I will treat him, and while he will be okay, he will be healthy, then I will hand him over to the police. Thus agreed. Now the both agreed. Together they lifted the man. They both together lifted the man. He was very light like a fowl. Now author is making a ironical comment here. Now this time Both Dr. Sadao and Hana picked this man very easily, and this man was swimming them just like very light weighted, like a fowl, means is a very like a bird, as is a bird that had been half starved, who was almost half starved, means half dead for a long time, and not having food, proper food for a long time, until it is only feathers and skeleton, and it was looking so light weighted, as just like a bird which has not been provided food for so many time, and that's why the bird has only remains feathers and skeleton in its body. So light weighted this man was seeming. Now let's imagine, while it was turn to put this man into the sea, Dr. Sadao said, Hana said that come Sadao, we will pick and put him into the sea. Dr. Sadao said, I am able to pick him, but are you? Hannah said, no, I'm not able. Means they both agreed there. Hannah said that, no, I'm not, but if you can do alone. So both showed their inability to carry this man, to pick this man, to put into the water. But now they both have picked him. Their house is a long distance from there, means even longer than rather than the sea beach. Sea beach were very close. Their house was a bit far rather than the sea beach. But now they both Hana and Sadao are carrying this man in their with so easy, in a so easy manner. So it is just is a kind of ideology. They were not willing to leave this man dying. They were in mood to treat this man and to make him healthy. So his arms are hanging actually, just like the wings of the bird. They carried him up the steps. Both carried him up the steps, means this American him, into the side door of the house, and they carried him into the side room of the house. This door opened into a passage. Now this door opened into the passage, corridor, gallery, and down the passage, and to the other end of the passage they carried the man towards an empty bedroom. It had been the bedroom of Sadao's father actually, and since his death it had not been used, and after the death of Dr. Sadao's father, this bedroom had not been used. They laid the man on the deeply matted floor. They kept that man on the deeply matted, very thickly matted floor. Everything here had been Japani to please the old man. Everything in this room was just of Japani, means all the things were kept in this room was just of Japani made, to please that old man who would never in his own home sit on a chair or sleep into a foreign bed. Means and Sadao's father, who means Sadao's father, never sit in a chair or sleep in a bed which was foreign made. Means he used everything of Japani. Means Dr. Sadao's father was a very patriotic person, and he always promoted his own country things. Hana went to the wall cupboards. Wall cupboards are those kind of cupboards which is made in wall actually. So wall cupboards, and slid back a door, and she opened a door and took out a soft quilt. She took out a soft quilt from there. She hesitated to give that soft quilt to that man, because the man was very dirty. The quilt was covered with flowered silk. The quilt was covered with flowers were embroidered over the quilt cover, and the lining was pure white silk, and the lining over that was pure white color silk. So nice looking quilt. Now she was going to have over to that dirty man. She said, "He's so dirty. That is so dirty." She murmured in distress. He's so dirty. Yes, he had better to be washed. Yes, it will be better to wash this man. Sadao agreed. If you will fetch hot water, I will wash him. If you will bring hot water, I will wash this man. I cannot bear for you to touch him, she said. She said that, no, even for you, Sadao, I cannot touch this man. He was looking so dirty. We shall have to tell the servants he is here, and I'm going to ask the servants that he is here. I will tell Yumi now. I'm going to tell Yumi. Yumi is a maid servant of that house. She can leave the children for a few minutes and she can wash him. Please, Yumi was a maid servant who was kept to look after the children. Hana said that I'm going to call Yumi, that she could leave the children for some minutes and she would come and wash this man. Sadao considered a moment. Sadao thought for a moment that they should inform the servants about this matter. Not let it be so. Okay, as you like, do so. He agreed. Okay, that inform the servants. You tell Yumi and I will tell the others. You should go to tell the Yumi and I will tell others. Okay, thank you. And next part of video.